Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives. It is I, the mayor, Flobo Boyce, in the mayor's office, hang with people who are doing the dang thing. Now, if you're a long-term listener or watcher of the show, thank you so much. 5 stars if you can. You'll know that my presenting journey is kind of like a weird mismatch of failures and L's, and being able to talk with somebody who's actually blazed a path in a niche that was totally her own is amazing. So please welcome Christine Blanchette to the show. How's it going, Christine?
It's going well. I mean, I am now that it's warmer weather here in Canada, so I'm excited to be on your show and thank you.
No, thank you for making time. I've only been to Canada twice, but both times it was Toronto, but I hear Vancouver is superior in many ways.
It is. I mean, it's a really outdoorsy city. You can golf usually all year round. You can run pretty well. Well, we get lots of rain, like today, but it is an outdoorsy city. We're full of mountains and ocean and yeah, I love it here. And I used to live in Quebec. That's where I'm from. And it has a beautiful place. So every province is really nice. And I think anywhere you can make it your home. It's just taking what you can from each state or each province in Canada and you run with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that. Run with It. It was a television show that you developed or co-developed. It ran for years on television. Now, before I get to nitty gritty, let's talk about top level, how the idea come about and how you decided to push it over the finish line to have it available for public consumption.
Yeah, thanks for asking. A long story short, I was working in media, post media, like for print and digital. And what happened was I got laid off from my position. And at the time, I was on deadline, I was writing a story. And this was in roughly maybe 2012. Yeah, 2012. And I thought, oh, Epiphany, why don't I just start my own TV show? And I'm thinking, TV show? It's just came to me while I was on deadline. But then I thought, how am I going to do that? So, and I do have some experience, before that. So I reached out to Doug Lucas, who I met at Rogers TV. And then I put together a proposal. And then it got off the ground. Like 2 years to get off the ground. And then it aired first on Shaw and now on Novice and Telus. But that's how it all began. And it was just from this idea because I don't know, it's an epiphany, as I said. It was like,
Mhm.
I don't know what I was writing about at the time, but I know I was on deadline and I was very, stressed. And I'm thinking, how am I going to reinvent myself other than, being a freelance writer?
Right.
Uh, but yeah, that's how it started.
So let's take a step back because I think you hit something that hits a lot of us who decide to go in the business for ourselves. You hear about entrepreneurship, and there's some people that tend to be from the school of, well, I just had to do it. But you said you were laid off, which is what I was. I was in corporate America. I was doing the yes sir, no ma'am thing, and I got laid off on Thanksgiving Day,
Um,
2017. Let me ask you about the mental strain of that. Like, was there an issue of like I had to get another job? Did you go right into going for something you care about? Was there weeks of staring into the night sky going, what's next for me?
no, that's a very good question. I mean, I remember where I was. I was on the couch, the sofa, typing, and I felt, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I was stressed. I was thinking, I need a job. I need to find something that not to get laid off and to keep going. And then, as I said, I thought, oh, I can figure out maybe I can do a show. And then like the little engine that could, I did. But it took a team and I mean, I had to find something, but in the meantime, I had my freelancing, when you need to make money and you need to find something. And then I ended up doing um, an odd job there, like project work, but it wasn't easy. And then just, keeping focus on that carrot, if you will. And then the running helped me too. And then
Yeah.
the support is huge and it still is because it's not easy being an entrepreneur or having your own show, your own podcast. It's a lot of you deal with rejection, you deal with everything, producing and money management and getting on, having guests on the show and making sure that you do the proper prep work. It's a lot. So being in this on the other side, I so appreciate what you're doing and you have a great, show. So I hope I answered your question.
I mean, yeah, it was you flattered me at the end of it. Well, thank you. That's so a little bit about myself. If again, I apologize to long-term listeners because I feel like I talk about myself all the time. But I used to be heavy set. I used to weigh 375 pounds, and because I was also working class and a grad student, I didn't have the means to go to a gym or get a nutritionist or get a trainer. But I did run, and my joints were aching because my first 5K was at 280 pounds, but I was able to lose 150 pounds doing that. And I kind of wish there was more resources like that going on. Talk to me about your love of running. Was it something that you fell into as well? Was it kind of like a, hey, look, I'm broke like Flobo? Or no, you're like, no, I realize there's a lot more cathartic going out there and being your thoughts. What's your approach and what's your love of running like?
Well, first of all, I love your story. You are so driven and such an inspiration. And that's, running saved me because, and it sounds cheesy, even maybe to some, like, I'm thinking of the word cheese, but it did because I wouldn't have a show. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you because it's called Run With It. It started off with Christine's Journey, which is like, it sort of Run With It was sounded better and it is better for what I do for the platform. But it just like my passion for running led to creating my own television show. And but I love running for the many benefits. It's helped with your mental well-being. It helps to help others, you inspire others. You can take on a lot more. Um, how to cope with sending emails, how to how to cope with daily life. And it's not just losing weight, but it gives me confidence. It really running has put me in a position where I give talks and I teach running. I everything I breathe, eat, sleep, running, and running to me. And then I walk too. Look, people are listening and watching the show. You don't have to be a runner to watch the show. You can be someone who loves swimming, walking, doing the stairs. It doesn't matter as long as you're moving. And that's what the show is about. Lifelong running and healthy. I want to run till I'm in my 90s, I hope.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really cool. It also is interesting because you do a half marathon. You're like, yeah, I'm young and I'm spry. And there's someone who's 90 running past you, like, hey,
Yeah.
slow down to
It's
the
so
left.
true. It's also about leaving a legacy too. It's just about sharing your knowledge and just, helping others. So uh, this is what I do. And I find that people come to me and I'll give advice on how to train. I may not know the answer, but I'll get you the answer because I don't pretend to know everything.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's been a great ride so far.
When a lot of people come to me and they ask about how like launching a podcast, because I'm sure that's happened to you as well, is how do you start your own TV show? You mentioned the proposal aspect of it, but let's say you're already approved, but you're on seasons one, seasons two, and on. How do you approach the idea of introducing new segments, sunsetting segments, seeing things work? Like, what is an experiment? You just go, I'm the creative head, let's rock it, or do you have a committee to help you decide things? What's that like?
Well, thanks for, yeah, I do have a license to create what I want, but at the same time, I have to be mindful of the audience. So I'm on broadcast, so they'll take segments, but it has to be obviously a theme of running, health related. But I trust my intuition now that as you go along and you say, oh, this idea is great. Maybe I'll run this by my consultant and see if this works. But overall, if it has an aspect of health, and sometimes I go by themes like every month, right? I'll think, oh, this is a great idea because it's eating disorders month, or it's mental health month, or it's grandparents day. Maybe there's a health aspect. And it's just, I just and sometimes at the beginning you try it and it may not work, then you can finesse it. You can make it a bit longer, a bit shorter. But yeah, overall, I hope I answered your question. But that's
Yeah.
basically what I do is I do have the license, but yet it's really important to know my audience, or consider my audience and work along that and see how it goes. Like
Was there was it ever an instance where you had a segment or an interview? You're like, "Oh, I ain't doing that again. Whoop.
oh, well, you know what? It's just sometimes you can be so prepped and have everything in order and it doesn't go well. And it's with something, generally speaking, with travel. It was a travel segment, and I didn't feel good about the interview even going in, but because I committed, I did it, and I thought I didn't like it. I didn't like the content. I aired it because I was committed, but I never repurposed the content.
Sure.
um, yeah, and I can't really say who it was, obviously, but
Right.
it was now looking back, I look at things objectively or try, okay, do I really want to do this interview? Is there something that I want to get? And I think about it before I say yes. I try always, 99.9%.
Right. No, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm a big late night talk show historian slash nerd slash junkie.
Yeah.
And there was no longer on the air, but there was the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson on CBS. And he was famous for having his little placard of notes, rip them up and then have a positive
Yeah.
conversation. And they would ask about when do you know it was time to leave? And he's like, well, I've had good episodes, I've had bad episodes. But if I find myself in this trend of being like, oh, this isn't working for a long period of time, something generally shifts majorly on the show. And so I've been there. I mean, it's been a while, not to brag, but it's been a while since I had
No.
this. But you'll have a guest and you're like, well, okay, you promised me this, but we're just talking about your widgets for an hour. What do I do with this content? And it's like this balance of, am I a bad person? Is this a good show? Is this a good interview? Can I still use it? It's really something that we all have to struggle with. So thanks for sharing.
No, and you own it too. You own the platform. It's your time. And but you can maybe perhaps, like, if I may say, like, speed it up. You can say, well, thank you for joining me today. And I think that's all I have, or something kind, because you want the show to do well, not only in your favor, but their favor, right? So it is that was the only interview so far, that
Yeah.
um but yeah, it's
Yeah, I know. I hear you. We're not here to trash people. So
no.
when it comes to entertainment, and I guess your show's edutainment in some way, there's been talk about the entertainment winter, right? Streaming services are merging, content creators aren't really getting a return on their views and advertising revenue. Some people are getting out the game completely. What's that been like for you? Are you seeing that? Are you finding ways to adapt and pivot? What's been your approach during down times or down periods when it comes to entertainment?
Well, I have other projects on the go and I learned to adapt, embrace it, with AI, for example. Like I, I'm taking this quote from someone I forget, a colleague, my brainstorming friend. So as a writer, I use that for inspiration only. But what I do is that I look at things objectively. Like I have a being transparent, I think is the key. If someone wants to air your content and give you revenue, like, you need to be transparent. You need to keep on it and on it and on it and think, okay. Because otherwise there's just so much competition with content. And if you don't take the onus on you to send an email and figure out, okay, what's going on with the content that I submitted? And, you ask for your uh, your revenue, quarterly revenue shares, if you will. But it's really, really important. It's like the onus is on us for your health, right? It's you really do. So as a creative, I'm really trying to be transparent, find out what's going on and make it my mission. And then because I don't want to waste time, I want to provide good content always, but I want to make sure that my content is being utilized and where is it going, and because it takes a lot of time and a lot of you
Yeah.
know etc. So did I answer your question on that in a roundabout way? I think I did.
I think I think it's so interesting, like during the pandemic, I always refer to that as like not to make light of it, but almost when you watch a motorsport, when there's a car crash and there's a safety car that comes out and we all have to line up again and everyone's going around the same pace. And for some, it's kind of like, oh, I'm slowing down. For most of us, it was. And for some of us, it was like, hey, look, there's time for me to recalibrate what I need. And we saw people really benefiting from that slowdown, myself included. I had a podcast network of 9 shows at its peak, but then it can't be that way forever. People are going back outside again. It's like, do people still need me? Am I relevant? How do I make my revenue? This is my job. So it's always interesting to see how creatives deal with that, especially if they work in the content space.
Yeah, and I think collaboration is really important to find someone you work well with, and then strengthen numbers. And I believe you can't do everything on your own. You have people who you trust, a great team behind you. But yes, I mean the podcast, it's great to have, podcasts out there, and there's always room for more. It's how unique you are. And my quote is, be who you are. There's no one like you. And I
Mhm.
think if you just compete with yourself, like running, or you will have that piece of pie. I think, I know it sounds, but everybody does. It's how you look at it. You can't be somebody else. And I think that will propel you, and that will keep you doing well, not only for your sake, but for the audience to get the information, because people love information, education, entertainment. So,
Yeah. As of today, who is on your team?
well, thanks for asking. I have Doug Lucas still from since 2013. That's when the show launched. I have Kate, who's been with me the whole time. Leslie, I have Emerson Tanaka, and I have Nick, who was one of my students who's now helping me. I have, and there's other people too, like supporters, partnerships. So it's how you treat the team, and they believe in your project. So I have a small team, but
Yeah.
it's mighty.
So I've
Yeah.
been asking this kind of in the last couple episodes. Having an idea and having a vision and seeing it come to light is one thing, and it's great. And we're not here to diminish that, but then it comes a time with growth when you have a team, and as the owner, CEO, the lead, it's like almost your job or responsibility to understand that other people may have to see your vision. Now, that's something that may not happen directly, but what's been your experience of like shifting the persona or the mission or the values that you had internally to other people on your squad?
You know what? I love learning, and I love constructive criticism. And I always use the pronoun we. What do you think we should do? Because I see something, but they may see something better. It could be going to a shoot or doing a podcast or whatever. And these type of questions. Maybe you should ask this question. Maybe Christina's interview should be longer. Maybe we should edit. Maybe we should do this. And then and then includes them, and they feel they're part of the project, because I can't do this alone. So, and I work with all generations, younger than me, older than me, Generation Z, right? Or Z, and I ask, what do you think? They edit a different, really different, and like, perhaps, I don't mean it different and that kind of it, but more of creativity and it sort of propels it into another direction. And then you have someone who's a bit older, they see something more, in a different vision, if you will. So I, I think it's really important to include, and your guests too. I think include your guests, if you can. Like, I'm talking about partnerships, and say, well, what do you think? And work with them. And that's building relationships. And that's how I do it. And it's worked really, really well. Um, because you feel like you're contributing and you're making it to the finish line, and it's a product. So
Got to give a shout out to our British and Canadian listeners for Generation Z.
yes.
That was awesome. It's one of the benefits of having West Indian parents, British English. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. That it's a process, and there are a lot of processes that are going at once because you're juggling and wearing all the hats and spinning all the plates at once. And so it's just cool to see that you took a moment of tragedy, maybe like a financial tragedy or a livelihood tragedy, and you're pivoting that to something that's bearing fruit for you even to this day. Here's a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
So on the show, New Amsterdam Radio, we ask our guests some department questions, kind of like a lightning round, but you can take as much time as you want. Are you down to play?
Yeah.
Uh, you mentioned your board of trustees, but do you believe in days off? And if so, how do you celebrate and how did your team celebrate?
Oh, how do we celebrate on the show, you mean? Or
Like days off when you have nothing to do that
oh,
day, want to
yes.
recharge the battery.
Well, I love running. I love actually reanalyzing things, like getting ideas. So I read a lot. Well, I'm skimming through the newspapers. I'm looking ideas. I get my best ideas while running. It's like movement, right? It's more than one foot in front of the other. And I love watching, documentaries. I love research. And these are the best ideas. You're planting seeds. You don't know where they're going to go or grow. Or they're going
Yeah,
to, yeah. And then I just like sometimes having coffee with a friend and, network,
yeah.
just recharge.
Personal question: do you run with music or without?
without.
Oh, wow, adamant. You're like without.
Well, I do because for me, I like to soak it all in, and feel my steps hitting the ground, or my feet hitting the ground. And I love just hearing, the trees if it's windy, but also for safety reasons too. I like to know just in case, and that keeps me. But I do run with music at times on the treadmill.
Sure.
So, but other than that, I just like to be free and just be out there.
Yeah, it's funny. I can run with music, no problem. Without music, no problem. But if I'm running with music and the music cuts off, it's like, it's like I like water. I love club soda, but flat club soda is terrible.
Yeah.
it's a it's a weird vibe.
Mhm.
What is an app that you use every day?
Oh, app? What app do I use every day?
Mhm.
Well, I use Instagram, and I like it because it's visually appealing. And I just like the short videos, and post. It's just, I mean, there's TikTok, and I also on LinkedIn, but yeah, Instagram so far.
Yeah. Instagram's always a classic one. I do that when I roll over out of bed, much to my detriment. Uh, so what is on your travel bucket list as of right now? Where do you want to go?
Well, you know what? I love to go back to Quebec, back home and see my dad. It's been a while. It is, yeah, I mean, nice too when you talk about recharging your batteries. You get a different perspective and running along the country roads, and there's nothing like it. And yeah, and I like to go to um, Hawaii. I don't know, but right now that's where I like to go.
Oh, absolutely. Hawaii, it's a good place. I actually went once my entire life, and I was like, "What? I get it." And lastly, now you have to be completely honest with me. What is your favorite junk food?
Oh, chips.
What kind?
I like salt vinegar chips.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah.
won't name the
Her,
brand, so I don't want to endorse it, but salt vinegar.
I will because as someone who actually likes Canadian Hers ketchup flavored chips, that's the one I only have. It has to be hers. It has to be ketchup.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You don't get
No.
this over here. It's kind of a hard
No,
thing to
you
get.
don't.
So.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits of crossing the border. So when I go to Canada, I bring a suitcase. I'll drink all the Sea Missile Pilsner I can, but I make sure I grab the ketchup favorite chips.
Yeah. I don't know if Yum's still around. I know back Yum chips, like ketchup
Yeah,
chips.
I'll have to
Um,
try those. Yeah,
yeah, I think it's still around the brand, but yeah.
that's fantastic. Well, Chrissy, I appreciate the time that you coming on the show to chat about your vision and what you're working on. Now, if somebody wants to connect with you and see what you are developing down the pipe, how to go about doing that.
Oh, just go to my website, runwithit.ca, or Google my name, you'll find me. And yeah, that's pretty well it.
The greatest thing in the world to say Google me. That took me a long time. It took me 15 years, but I can say Google me and it works. It's so cool.
No,
that, thanks so much. Runwithit.ca. Make sure you check it out. And we'll to have you on a future episode down the line. I appreciate your time.
thank you so much for having me.